Alright, so I recently finished up the remake for Resident Evil 3 and played through a bit of 2. So I've got some footage from Ghost Survivors pre-recorded here in the background while we talk about the games. This is not a new series for me. I've had 4 for a long time, but it would be like I would play from scratch, stop, and I repeated that like 2 to 4 times before I finally sat down and finished the entire game. I actually did that right before I started this YouTube channel, just about. And I'm honestly surprised it took me this long to play another game in the series, but for me, it's almost a similar thing with Final Fantasy, at least for a bit, where there's kind of a loose connection between games, but you can really play them in any order. It's like you just hear so many things from all the different games available. I knew I had to start with 4 just because that's the one I've had forever, had some experience with. And no, it's a particularly beloved entry by most people. But then after that, I've heard, a lot of good things about the first 3 games before it. People seem to really like the last couple games that came out. 5 and 6 are a little more mixed from what I gather. But at the same time, you kind of wonder if it would be better to play those games now before I get more into the series. Because I heard the main issue is that the direction they took doesn't necessarily feel like what you would want from a Resident Evil game. So I guess I got stuck in decision paralysis. But Halloween was coming up. It's past now. But was in the mood for a horror game, and I finally made a decision to go with 3, mainly because it's the most recent entry I have. I got a Humble Bundle deal on just about the entire franchise a year or 2 ago, and this was the latest one, I believe, from that pack. And I was just kind of curious as to the improvements that were made between the original 4 and a more recent entry. Not gonna lie, I remember inventory management being a really huge thing in 4. Like, I remember probably spending more time than normal just managing your inventory space and the relief of having space when you come across a rare item or making some tough decisions when you don't. Unfortunately for me, and I was playing on casual difficulty, because in case you couldn't already tell from the footage, I kind of suck and don't really care that much. But yeah, it was still kind of a thing, but not anywhere near the level it was in 4 or what I was expecting, which I guess is more of a bittersweet thing. It could be, like I said, anxiety-inducing as much as rewarding. I will say, though, I kind of forgot how puzzle and collectible centric the games were. It worked really well with 2. I honestly really liked. I forget if it was in 4, but I would love for like a series like Zelda. Oh yeah, because I remember because I was looking up thinking the ladder was towards the roof, but now it's the opposite there. In case you're wondering, whatever was stumbling me there. But footage aside, I really liked how they, as someone who tries to find and collect everything they can, the room's red, get the fuck back in there, you're not done yet. Really helps with efficiency, which is something I always really enjoy trying to do in video games. Granted, I feel like that could be a double-edged sword. I feel like some people might like the challenge of not knowing more. But like another example I liked was that in your inventory there would be a trash can letting you know when you can disregard safely key items. And like I said, I could see the appeal of making that decision on your own. At the same time, I'm the kind of person that would have had a guide pulled up looking for when you can safely disregard the item anyway, so it felt good, especially with how common guides are, and that now to have that baked into the experience. I will say I did notice some yellow tape in both these entries. First time getting poisoned there, I didn't even, like I said, I only played part of 2, so I didn't even reach any poison enemies, didn't really know what they were initially or how close I can get. Probably had some curious tendencies in the footage the first couple times I ran into them, but yeah, I don't know, the yellow tape thing, it is what it is. I would prefer more subtle clues, but at the same time, I say that now, but I would be the first one to kind of get frustrated when the clue is too subtle and I'm looking up a guide to figure out how to advance. So, similar to inventory management, it's kind of a double-edged sword. There's sort of a sweet spot you have to hit, and I don't know if it's even better to not take that risk in certain cases. With Resident Evil 3, honestly, I only have 2 complaints, I guess, that are bigger. Like I said, I try to collect everything, and I guess this is kind of my own fault in a way too, but there were points where there may have been like a tough enemy or a boss, and I wanted to conserve some resources, so I sort of left a couple rooms red so I can refill during or after the battle, but then a cutscene would play, and then that wouldn't happen. And hell, I thought the downtown area from the beginning of the game was kind of going to turn into a hub world, and that never happened. So once again, there was, just some red areas, and I wasn't able to really clear them. It's a kind of linear game, and without, starting a whole new playthrough. Unless there's something I'm unaware of, there wasn't really an easy way I found to go back and ease some of that OCD I have over collecting things. But luckily, I was able to get over it. Doesn't really break the experience. The other complaint with 3, though, is honestly, it was pretty short. Like I said, I got a good deal on it, so I don't mind. But at the same time, if I paid full price, it only took me 7 hours to pretty much do everything I wanted to do. And I don't know, maybe I could replay it. I think a fun challenge would be to, like I said, I sort of missed some of that inventory management. So if I did another playthrough where I don't pick up any of the inventory expansions to sort of add a little extra challenge there for the casual setting, maybe if that was the issue. But I would just be aware of that when making your decision on whether or not you think the game is worth whatever money is being charged. Resident Evil 2 wasn't as good of an experience for me. The game for me that it reminded me so much of was Metroid Prime, because when I was flowing and got a good rhythm going, it was such a really good, fun game. But I'm just stupid, I guess. And it got to a point with some of the puzzles, and obviously Metroid would have this, but I think it would be a Metroidvania-esque quality that was more present in 2, of sort of having to remember, I needed this to access an area that I got all the way on this other part of the map. So you gotta remember where it is and do all this backtracking, and I don't know, it got to a point, just like it did with Metroid Prime, where I felt like I was consulting a guide more than actually playing the game, and I've got too many games on my backlog to really be doing that. When fun's being had, it's great, but I felt like I was having less and less fun the more and more I wound up relying on the guide and, getting frustrated, which is really a shame. Like, the one thing that was weird is I feel like if I played 2 before 3, because I never realized, because like I said, I'm not super familiar with the series going in outside of 4, that just how much 2 and 3 are kind of connected. Like, I remember seeing the one wall I blew up in 3, so I think 3 is almost like a prequel, and it shares a lot of assets and areas. I do die here. I realized later that I guess I took the hard path. There's some, like, big monsters that come up and kill me here. was a bummer to lose the playthrough this far in, since there's no checkpoints. Like I said, I had no idea there was another route to go. That was a little more, not like that. I feel like my death happened so quick too. But anyway, yeah, I'm pretty sure I still had some healing items even. But I can imagine going into 3 after 2 and just being like, oh, it's the same locations, and I didn't like 2 as much. Like, I don't know, I still would have given it a shot and probably fallen in love with it like I actually did, just because I feel like the potential of getting a good rhythm going like I did earlier on in 2 would be enough to convince me to at least give it a shot. But, who knows just how different the opinion might be. But yeah, because I played 3 first and enjoyed it so much and wanted more, to be frank, I was excited. Like, yeah, that's almost exactly what I wanted. And hell, it's a shame it didn't really work out as well for me, just because I felt like the game seemed a lot bigger. Seemed like there was more of a variety in items and enemies. I missed Nemesis. I feel like the tense moments with him and the build up to the fights with, oh, it was so good. Missed dodging too. I was kind of surprised that wasn't in both, although maybe that's more of a skill issue for me. And yikes, with 2 as well. Like, aren't the original Resident Evils, I don't even know what you call the perspective you have in the games. This is obviously third person, and, a huge change and justification for the remakes. But the originals, where it's kind of an angled isometric, and I think it's just sort of have one camera in the room, maybe. Like I said, I haven't really played or seen much from the originals, but I never really found that perspective to be super appealing. I'm willing to give it a shot, particularly with games that are sort of stuck behind that perspective right now, which I think are at least the original first game and 0. Maybe some others. I hear people talk about Code Veronica. I don't really know much about that one. I just know it wasn't part of the bundle I got. Maybe it was console exclusive, but yeah, because I just can't imagine playing through the game with that perspective. I just don't know if it would have even clicked in its good moments at all, which is honestly what happened to me similarly enough with, the 2D Metroid games. I never really quite got a rhythm going there, but yeah, I think I'm kind of decided to do 5 and next and then 6. So hopefully, since the games are decided, won't be as long in between my playthroughs, but who knows? You easily get distracted by all sorts of different games. Although I do feel like next Halloween season, if I haven't already, just will probably lead to a fitting mood and time frame if it goes that direction. But there's other games too, like particularly I enjoyed Fatal Frame Made in the Black Water. I did get the remake of, I think, Mask of the Lunar Eclipse is what it was called. That's the direction I'm leaning. One of those two next time I dive into the genre. It's basically what I'm saying. Yeah, because unfortunately you're not probably going to see that much gameplay of this section here. Since I got most of my thoughts out, I think I come pretty close to dying soon too. I was wondering if I was even going to make it through, because this was supposed to be the most difficult one. I don't think they were in order, because I think the difficulty rating they gave them actually had the middle one as the easiest. At the same time, I kind of felt like the second one was a bit harder than the other two, personally, just because I don't even know what they're called, but I feel like the one rarer enemy you were dealing with a bit more. Here, you're kind of dealing with armor, which I don't think is a super big deal. I don't know, maybe the second one and dealing with poison could be a bit of more of a challenge too. Especially because I'm on the easy training mode too. When, you don't have those resources and that extra challenge from the difficulty. But I don't know, I didn't find the armor to be super annoying, or the plant zombies are the ones that kind of come up the most. Is Resident Evil? I forget, because I know there's some series that for whatever reason don't use the word zombie. I forget if Resident Evil is one of them, whatever they're called here. But I didn't find the plant zombies, which were kind of challenging too, but I just didn't feel like they came up as much. But I guess at the same time, I had more weapons in that, at least on the training mode too, so that could have been a factor. I felt like resources were a little more plentiful here, at least till the end. And when I just booked it, I had the finish line in sight there for the mission. The first one you saw there was the only one I didn't clear. I think in the main campaign I stopped around. I did a bit of the underground stuff, but I don't know when it, because like I said, I was optimistic. Fresh new area. Maybe I can get a good rhythm going with all these new locations coming up. But when I realized that wasn't the case, and I was consulting a guide quicker than I did with the police station, that's when I sort of called it quits. And unfortunately, I was kind of hoping a completely different campaign with Claire. I guess I'm not surprised, considering this is a remake of a decently old game, that you didn't have two completely unique campaigns, but there was some potential and hints with just story events that could have been a direction they went. But then and when I realized it was kind of turning into the same thing again, that was it. These DLC missions were pretty fun though, a little bit of a different twist on the formula with the backpacks and more combat based. Like I said, I forgot some of the puzzle stuff too, so this was almost more what I was expecting when I started the games. But yeah, like I said, kind of a bit of a bummer the second one didn't click that much, but we're still 2 for 3, and hopefully future entries sort of go better for me and anyone else who might have similar opinions and taste with some of the stuff I talked about.